we're here.
Yep. Unfortunately, I'm one person short.
It's fine.
It's fine. Welcome back, everybody, to another Spider-Man reviews. I'm joined by
Jonah Morgan
and Christian Hopkins, and today we are talking about.
This might be a long one.
It might be. We're gonna try.
It might have to be.
Maybe. But we're for a review of Spider-Man PS4. Mm-hmm. I literally washed the shirt again just so I could wear it again.
Yeah, you did wear that last video, didn't you?
Yes, I did. So, where do we want to start?
Do you have any singular tiny gripe with the game? Like, it could be like you don't like a certain character or whatever. I feel like we should start off with that.
You know what? I got the very, very tiny nitpick.
That's all it's going to be with this game.
Some of the wall crawling mechanics.
Yep.
There's sometimes where Spider-Man should just be able to climb over like a small part on a building, and he just can't.
And he's unable. Peter.
Now, granted, they sort of make up for that because they really made that to where it's you do like wall running.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of make up for that. But there are other times I'm like,
Yeah, let him tell you about how devastated I was when I found out that. So I have a PS5. And then I got Spider-Man Remastered because I had never played it. I had only played Miles Morales and I loved it. So I was like, I want to play the original one. And so I got it on PS5 and played it on 30 frames when I had the opportunity to be playing it on 60 frames. And it still looks good in 30 frames, but in 60
like, I wish I had my reaction for first seeing it. Cause
there's no words.
You had it started on 30, and then you when I was playing for the first time...
and I go, wait.
Because I unfortunately don't have a PS5, but you switched it to 60, and I was like...
There's no words for it. It's... This game... And the fact that, you switch back to 30 and you're like, no, this still looks great.
It still looks good.
I don't have...
Okay, so let's start off with the main thing. The gameplay.
It's amazing. It's incredible.
Some of the best gameplay in superhero games.
It's some of the smooth... it's what you would... If before this came out, you were thinking of, just what you wanted... What you were envisioning a Spider-Man game to be and feel like. This is it.
But this gameplay does such a fantastic job making you feel like you're Spider-Man. Where it's like, whether you just mainly stick to hand-to-hand fighting, which is typically what my brother does, or you rely a little bit more on gadgets than you do hand-to-hand, which is what I focus on. I do a good mix and a good amount of finishers, but I do end up using my gadgets a lot.
It's some of the smoothest combat in any game.
Definitely.
Ever.
Speaking of which, this is the best... Oh, I'm gonna be honest. This is the best open world of any video game.
Yeah.
The swinging is perfect.
Other than
No, there's some that could easily be a contender for that.
As far as open worlds, you're looking
like Ghost of Tsushima,
Breath of the Wild, stuff like that. But it's not the same as this. It's
it's very different.
There's so much stuff they had to focus on because it's New York, so it's chock full of just everything. So.
Yeah, and apparently Insomniac even made the building's a little bigger and the streets are a little wider.
They made them wide so you could, it was easier to swing.
Yeah, and it's, I love the open world. I've lost count of the amount of times where I would load up the game and I would just swing. I've lost count of how many times I've done that. It's so much fun. Alternate suits.
Most of them are very, very good. A lot of them I don't like, but I understand.
I understand
why they're there.
I was about to say I want to do something kind of different, or not different, but I want to do something. What would you say are your least favorite and favorite alternate suits?
My least favorite
Because really quick, I do love how this game handles alternate suits perfectly, because it gives you incentive to do everything in the map, because it takes tokens to unlock suits.
Ooh, let me just the 100% suit. Undies.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It's funny.
But for 100% of the game, give me Cosmic Spider-Man from the comics.
That's a good one.
Give me Cosmic Spider-Man from the comics. That'd have been really good. I mean, it's funny, but for what it is, no.
For 100% suit, it's bad.
I understand I understand why it's there, but the Rider suit for me is not. It's not Spider-Man, but it's cool. But it's not Spider-Man.
See, yeah, that sort of thing irritates me because it's based on the show Kamen Rider, which I love. I've seen several of those shows.
It has its place, but it's not Spider-Man.
It feels like a Kamen Rider suit, but the thing is, there are a lot of Kamen Rider suits that are great.
Yes.
This, it's just a very weird design.
It's bulky. It's not like a...
And I don't even know if it's like meant for Kamen Rider fans, because as a Kamen Rider fan, I'm not the biggest fan of that suit.
It looks cool. Like, the animation is, like, different from everything else around it, but it's not Spider-Man.
What would you say your favorite is?
My favorite, I have two favorites.
Go ahead.
The regular one, the advanced, is... Oh my gosh. So yeah, you start out the game with, like, just a really good-looking classic suit, because it's got the back end. It's good.
Yeah, it's so good.
Then it gets damaged, and then he makes this, and they change, because, like, when you think of a Spider-Man suit, it's a black front end, no, a giant white emblem, and I think it looks amazing.
They took such a massive risk with changing the suit, and everybody was so skeptical of this design.
And it worked better than they ever could have imagined, because it looks so good.
Easily.
And Scarlet Spider, obviously, because that's my favorite Spider-Man suit. Scarlet Spider with the...
Ben Reilly.
Yeah, with the hoodie. Yeah, that's my favorite Spider-Man suit.
My least favorite is Spider UK.
It's not great. The eyes are so stupid.
I don't mind the suit in the comics, but in this game, it looks terrible.
The eyes are bad.
The eyes are bad. The blue is an ugly blue. Like
it's like a metallic, like, weird shade.
It's a very lighter blue.
It's a weird shade of red too.
Yeah,
it's not even red. It's like dark. I don't know.
It's just a suit. It's like
dark. Here, I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, it's like a suit. I was kind of like, I don't like it. Because at least Undies is funny. This is
funny.
This suit was just like, it was a suit I didn't mind in the comics, and they just made it bad.
Bad?
My favorite, I think I am going to have to say it is the advanced suit as well. This is a contender for my personal favorite Spider-Man suit. And this suit is probably my second favorite. Because my favorite that was not added into the first game. So help me, let it be added in the second game.
It will.
And for the record, I'm talking about Amazing Spider-Man 2. But the advanced suit would probably have to be my favorite. If I had to say a close second, it would probably have to be probably the Stark suit.
Yeah,
might have to be a close second.
Another one that I just thought of, it's a story thing, so we'll probably talk about here in a little bit, is the Doc Ock suit.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that in the story, because...
Yeah. I love that suit. It's good.
But yeah, alternate suits-wise, I don't think it's not the best of any superhero game, but it is one of the best, in my opinion. So, story.
There's never... So, when you know you have a good story is when you're invested in the characters from the jump. They've barely had time to like...
Because this game starts out, and he's been Spider-Man for 8 years.
Yeah, you obviously, like, know all the characters and stuff, but, as soon as you meet Aunt May, love her. She's great. As soon as you meet Mary Jane, love her. She's fantastic. Because they do... the voice.
As soon as you meet Otto.
Yuri Lowenthal is the... I'm not even gonna talk about Spider-Man. The best voice actor in any game, maybe even like any movie, game, whatever the heck.
That is a bold statement that I am going to 100% agree with.
It is one of the best casting choices I've ever heard, because he sounds...
Because the only other Spider-Man who is up there in terms of voice acting for me is Josh Keaton. Yeah. But Yuri Lowenthal...
Yuri's voice is so perfect for, like, quips mid-fight, or just, sarcastic talking mid-fight. It's so good. Because his voice... Like, if you're reading a Spider-Man comic, right, I read it in Yuri's voice, because that's just how I hear Spider-Man now. Yeah. All the voice acting is good.
All the voice acting is incredible.
Otto is really good. I love Otto.
Yeah. Every single character is...
And the fact that this story makes you like Otto, and we'll get to the ending here. We'll get to the ending here in a little bit. But like, you know what's gonna happen, and you're like, no, please don't. I like you. You're really cool, because he's cool. He's really good.
This game does a perfect job of building up relationships and
then you see
really showing growth, and like making you care about how these characters interact.
And so, like, well, I didn't do it in that order, but if you do the original Spider-Man and then Miles Morales, you see them in Miles Morales, and you're like, no. We'll talk about the ending of this game here in a little bit, but it's...
But yeah, all the dynamics in this game are just so believable. Like, Peter and Aunt May. Incredible. Oh my god, we will get to that.
You want to talk about the Peter Parker face change?
Okay, we will bring this up here. They changed the face in the PS5 remastered.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. But compared to the PS4 face,
I
played Spider-Man PS4 the day it came out, and I got home and my dad had already loaded it all up, downloaded it and everything. I immediately grabbed that controller. I understand
if you played it like multiple times with that face, but the first one I played was Miles Morales, and he already has the new face in that game. I do think that I like the newer face better because that's just what I played it with. But the older original face looks more like he should because he looks older. The newer face, he looks a lot younger for whatever reason.
Yeah, which is fine because like when you look at that face, like that's how some 23-year-olds would look like.
Yeah, the original face looks older and more like he's been through.
The new one looks a little too much like Tom Holland for my liking.
It does.
And I think that's one of my bigger problems.
But it's not bad or anything.
It's not bad.
You come to terms with it.
Yeah, like when I first saw it, I was
didn't like it.
When I first saw it, I did not like it. But over time, I'm just like, you know what? I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Now, it will never top the old face for me. But...
And it'll be the new face in the new game, too.
Yeah. But yeah, that's something I love so much about the story, is that this game pulls some aspects from Spider-Man 2.
Mm-hmm.
In the fact that you see Peter struggling with being Peter and Spider-Man.
Even though he has been doing it for years.
He's been doing it for 8 years, which you can see with how much he's advanced his suit and all of his tech and everything. And one of my favorite missions in the game that shows just how human Spider-Man is the mission where you're having to dig around in the trash.
That's funny.
And go all around Chinatown.
That's funny.
On the phone with the garbage man, Eddie. And
love Eddie.
It's not a mission you would ever expect to play.
At the moment, you're like, why am I doing this mission and why am I liking it?
Yeah. Especially because right after that, you were just done like this big mission with Jefferson Davis.
No, there's just so many there's just so many story missions that are like not really related to like the bigger overarching story, but it's good to break it up because like
like
that's how Spider-Man
a good example of breaking it up are the missions where you play as Mary Jane and Miles.
I really like those. A lot of people don't like those, but it's good pacing and it's
I really like that. Now, is it the best instance of playing as another character in a Spider-Man game? No, because I just finished replaying Ultimate Spider-Man in my PC game to play as Venom.
Plays Venom.
It's so good. But being able to play as MJ and Miles was just it was a nice change of pace, and it's something that I enjoyed doing.
MJ has a taser.
I wish you got that a little earlier.
MJ gets a taser in
the final mission you play as or in the main story. Getting back to the story. So this game starts out where Spider-Man finally beats Kingpin, like permanently.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not permanently, but he gets rid of him for the time being. And then the entire game is just this like power vacuum that's left in the wake of Fisk getting arrested, which is where Mr. Negative comes in.
Which makes sense.
It makes complete sense.
He's a crime boss who,
Which Mr. Negative, that was a bold choice going for a new character that I don't think has been seen in.
I feel like you can immediately tell he was the villain, like as soon as you met him, but I think that was the point because you find out he's the villain.
You found out
very quick.
Well, you found out he was the villain or a villain in the demo. With the Fisk Tower construction site.
Yeah, but
although they changed that in the main game.
Yeah, even if you didn't play the demo, you see.
Well, not play the demo. It's like watch it.
Yeah, you see him.
And something's off.
And then you see Mr. Negative, and you're like, "Wait, that's the same guy." Because like you can tell it's him, even though he's not like the inverted colors, but you can tell it's him.
Yeah. But he was a great choice to put in this game.
His backstory is cool.
Yeah, which you learn a lot more about later, because the entire point of of most of the villain's motivations, or at least two of them, is wanting revenge on Norman Osborn.
Yep.
And I mean, for good reason, because after the whole thing in Grand Central Station, when you fight Mr. Negative the first time, and you go to Otto's office, or not office, but his lab, and he's made the arms.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and then later, and because Peter runs the diagnostics, and it's just like, no, like, it's all, like, screwing with him. He's like, oh, these are all bad calculations.
They give an explanation for why Doc Ock is the way he is. It's not him. It's like the chip like missing with his mind.
But it's also due to the fact that he hates Norman. And seeing Norman on the TV, kind of like taking credit for getting rid of Mr. Negative. But that's another thing I love, is that the pause menu has like a social media feed, which works so much better than it did in the first Amazing Spider-Man game. And it's like, you can see some comments where it's just like, why is Mayor Osborn taking credit for what Spider-Man did? He did nothing.
Think how long it must have taken to write all of those, because it updates like constantly.
Yeah, every time you do like some sort of new thing.
Every time you do anything,
and you can even see some Spider-Man characters in there. Like, you can see, like, you'll see Peter in there a couple times. You'll see, because Peter has a separate account for both Peter and Spider-Man.
Burner account.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just, the entire story was just so good, because this game is very much split up into 3 different acts, and the first one is much more like focuses on that power vacuum, which ends with Jefferson Davis dying.
That is, it's gonna happen, but like, it's sad still.
Yeah, and then the second act is much more focusing on getting rid of Mr. Negative, which is also where Silver Sable comes into play.
I hate her. You're supposed to not like her, but she's cool.
You're supposed to. She becomes a lot more likable in the DLC. But yeah, that's where they came in. And throughout this entire... And then the final act is where... Because the whole thing is also about, like, Devil's Breath, which is this sickness. And in the Raft Breakout mission...
That is one of the greatest missions in any video game I've ever played.
It's so cool. Because it's where the Sinister Six comes in, and Spider-Man gets his butt
kicked, yeah. And it's not like, oh, he's going to prevail. Nope, he gets his butt kicked.
But yeah, and then the entire final act of the game is, in terms of story missions, it's the shortest of all of them, because the only reason, like, that act will be just as long is because of all the side stuff, because they have so many crimes for you to do when the third act starts. And me being 100% completionist every time I play this game.
This is one of the games that you're like, you want to 100%.
Because if you're not doing it in the New Game Plus, you have so many like tokens to get to like upgrade your gear. It gives you reasons to do all that, to be able to upgrade your gear. And to get new suits, which also gives you new suit powers. So you could not like a suit, but
I use the same one the entire game.
Well, yeah, I use Web Blossom almost the entire game, but yeah, just that entire thing. Doc Ock is revealed as the main villain, and I love so many of the boss fights in this game.
They're not complex at all, but they're effective.
They're not, but they also have some unique things about them. So, like, the Kingpin one is basically like a brute, but it's
fairly, yeah.
But it's kind of simple. All of the Mr. Negative...
you get punched once, you're dead. If you get hit once, you are dead.
Yeah, depending on the difficulty. All of the Mr. Negative boss fights were so visually cool.
Yes, they are cool.
And story-wise, they were just even better, especially the last one. And the Shocker boss fight is one of my favorites in the game.
I do like the Shocker boss fight.
In the bank, it's so much fun, because that's one of the first boss fights that we saw.
The Electro Vulture boss fight I like.
I want to talk... See, that's another thing. It's like, for a couple bosses, they pair up 2 of them.
Right.
And I really like how, even though this isn't I kind of wish they had made this required, but you can use their attacks against one another. So, like, when Vulture throws some wings at you, you can chuck them at Electro.
That's what I did.
And you can, like, go over and punch Vulture a couple times when Electro's about to blast you, move out of the way, and Electro will shock Vulture.
Is that not how you're supposed to do it? Or
you're not supposed to, but
because that's how I did it.
But it helps, because I think it does a good chunk amount of damage.
That's what I did. I was just like, that was what my mind immediately went to, was grabbing Vulture's like wing attacks and throwing it at Electro. That's what I did.
Yeah. It's not required, but it's cool that they... Because I think they do a little bit more damage, because it also helps you be able to hit them more. And like with Rhino and Scorpion, there are times where like Scorpion's shooting acid and you can be over by Rhino.
That boss fight genuinely killed me a couple times. I'm not even gonna lie. That boss fight is tough.
And there are a couple times where you can like web. When Scorpion comes down to attack you can web him up and have Rhino just run over him.
The Scorpion stuff in this game is good too.
Oh, that mission was so cool. With where the undies suit actually plays a part in the story. And some of the news feed are just like, did anybody just see Spider-Man swinging around in his underwear?
Mm-hmm.
But the best boss fight in the game has got to be the final boss fight.
And it's really simple. There's nothing
really like complex about it, but
half of it you're on the side of the building and it's just pressing a couple buttons, but visually it looks incredible.
And story-wise, one of the highlights of this game which is a big part of why the voice actors do such a great job, is the relationships that these characters build up. Because throughout this entire story, you believe the relationships between these characters. Like, you see the struggles between Peter and MJ through the entire game are so believable, and it's like, they meet again, they're like friends, they have an argument, then they make up at the end, and
they're like, their situation is believable because it's like
so believable.
It's
Spider-Man 2, but better.
Yeah, but this game, it's so good in the fact that like,
because Peter and Otto,
like Yuri's like voice acting in that final boss fight is incredible, because whenever he finds out that Doc Ock knew that it was Peter. Because, like, he had to.
The believability in his voice, I'm just like, that's not fair.
And the fact that after you beat him, he lands on this rock, basically, and presumably, like, messes up his back, like his spine, I think is what happens. And you just fought the guy, right? You just beat the boss fight, and it makes you feel so bad for him.
Because right from the start of this game, you can tell how much these two characters, how much Otto means to Peter, and even how much Peter means to Otto in a way. So the fact that this final boss fight makes it to where just someone just punching Otto once hurts you internally is brilliant storytelling. Yes. If a boss fight can make you do it to where it's like when you punch that other character, it makes you like, it hurts you on the inside. Perfect job. But
the guy that plays Doc Ock, at the very end, whenever he's yelling for Peter to come back, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then it's followed up by one of the saddest moments in gaming history. When...
Okay, I want to talk about this because the ending of the game brings up a major point about this version. So I want to say this right now. I think that this Spider-Man, Yuri Lowenthal, PS4 Spider-Man, I will forever stand by that he is the best Spider-Man, period.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, period.
I don't think you'll get an argument from anyone.
No. So now there are a couple of contenders I feel like people could argue for, like the Spectacular Spider-Man from the show, easy second. Even stuff like maybe like Peter B. Parker from Spider-Verse. I can
love even Peter B. Parker. I think this Spider-Man beats anybody in a fight too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
But the main reason I say he is the best Spider-Man is because, one, not just because he's a believable Peter and a funny and believable Spider-Man. The scene with Aunt May, because he makes the toughest decision of his life.
My dad was in the room whenever I was going through that cutscene. He goes, "What the heck?" And he goes, "This is messed up." And I go, mm-hmm. And I'm just sitting there like, nope, stop. I'm not gonna cry. No, not doing it.
But this, because he makes the toughest decision of his life.
And the fact that May,
because he's like, I can either cure Aunt May, but let so many other people die.
Or cure New York. Yeah.
Or let Aunt May die and cure all New York. And he lets Aunt May die. And you can see just how much this hurts him on the inside. So much. Because it does not help. Because right before that, Aunt May's like, take off your mask. I want to see my nephew.
So
I was like,
good.
The emotions!
And the fact that her gravestone says the same thing that it does in No Way Home.
Well, it's because they got that from this, because
yes,
that's something they say at the beginning of the game. It's like, oh, as May always says, when you help someone, you help everyone, which is why I lost it in No Way Home, because I was like, I recognize that. I recognize it.
And like the end, no, is it the beginning of this game where? Is it the beginning of the game where he's like, he grabs the toast and he's like putting on? It's almost the ending with No Way Home. Like the suit up thing where he just goes out his apartment window. It's the same thing.
Yeah, but this Peter makes the toughest decision of his life, and you can see the true struggle. And Yuri's voice acting, like you hear him breaking down just in his voice. I'm just like, that's because this Spider-Man,
awful.
That's awful, but not awful voice acting. It's awful in that it makes you feel upset. Because this Spider-Man understands responsibility. And that's the biggest thing about Spider-Man's character. Because especially at this point in the game, when the game came out, the Spider-Man in the comics had this issue of he wasn't the most responsible. But this Spider-Man understands perfectly what responsibility
Every
is.
single thing he does is calculated.
Yeah, because he lets the only thing left from his childhood die to save the city. And I think that's what makes this Spider-Man the best Spider-Man of any version of the character. Spider. That needs to be a suit in the second game.
Spider Cop.
But then the end of the game sort of gives a much more sort of a hopeful ending where it's not completely a letdown, because you get Peter and MJ getting back together, which is adorable.
The Miles scene where they stick to the ceiling. I do like that.
True, that is another thing. It's because after Peter fights with Negative and Ock comes in and screws him up again.
Yep.
And then you see Miles get bit by the spider.
Sequel?
And then I love it because Miles is just like, yeah, look what I can do. And then Peter does the same thing.
Bet.
And then you have the post-credit scene setting up the sequel with Norman seeing Harry in the tube with...
Setting up the sequel to the sequel. Give.
So
that game can't come out.
No, it can't. Enough. And to talk about it briefly, the DLC, the city that never sleeps.
They're good.
They just do a great job of expanding on the life after the main game, building up the characters even more, and
get Yuri the heck out of here though. That's the only thing. They ruin Yuri.
Not even that, they show who she's going to become.
They make her a serial killer.
Which she's not a serial killer, but a brutal. Because her character in the comics is a brutal vigilante of Wraith. So, and the thing is, while some stuff you're just okay, Yuri, that was kind of stupid. That was stupid of you to do. But at the same time, it's just it makes sense for who she's going to become. And seeing what she went through at the beginning of Turf Wars.
That whole side quest ends with that whole thing with her ends with her basically making an art piece out of this dude's body. Basically, where it's is it a whole bunch of police tape?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and a whole bunch of lights and stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so it makes sense, but I thought the entire City Never Sleeps was a great story, just to continue from the main game, because there were 3 parts of DLC with Black Cat and then Hammerhead and then Silver Sable coming back, and it was monthly. So the month after the game came out was the Black Cat.
How did Black Cat survive?
So this was something that I noticed immediately when I first played it. Was that before the explosion goes off, she's she disappears in a puff of smoke a millisecond before.
That's okay. I'll be fine with that, because she blows up. I'm like, wait.
Yeah, I thought that at first, and then I replayed it, and I was like, oh wait, she just disappeared in a puff of smoke a millisecond before.
I knew she wasn't dead. I was like, it's Black Cat. They're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do that. They want Felicia already.
You got anything else?
Screwball.
Ugh.
That's probably my one gripe with this game is
I love all the other side missions except I love every other side mission in the game because
Taskmaster's good, everything else is good.
All the stuff is so good. Screwball.
But screw Screwball.
And then she sticks around for every single DLC. I'm just like
all like the missions and stuff that you have to do for her are like inventive and they're cool, but like
they're fun.
Get her out of here.
They're fun, but her voice.
Get the heck out of here. Her voice is so annoying.
Yeah. Worst part of the game, just her character, because her missions in the DLCs are fun.
Yeah.
Just her as a character, though, I'm just like, bye.
Take a snapshot. No. Shut up.
Photobomb. Don't miss it. Anyways, overall, I mean, you can say your thoughts first.
10. Is it my favorite game? No, because Complete Saga exists. Okay. I was unfortunate in the fact that I played Miles Morales before this game. Whenever it came out, I still had an Xbox. So.
True. I don't think because you never had a PS4.
No, I didn't have a PS4. I had an Xbox. I had an Xbox One. Got a PS5, and the first thing I did was buy Miles Morales, like that, and like God of War. That was what I got. My favorite part and what makes this just a fantastic game is just all like I think the voice acting is the best part of this game, honestly, because he's just the perfect Spider-Man, and the story finds a way to make you feel bad for Doc Ock multiple times over.
Yeah.
And the gameplay is just, even just swinging around is addicting. And you'll scroll through like YouTube or TikTok or whatever and see like just people sitting on live just swinging.
The amount of times, when the game came out, like in that first weekend, and people had like early review codes for it, I would watch so many videos of just the swinging. So for mine. Screw it. Yeah.
11.
11 out of 10. This is the only thing I will probably ever give above a 10.
Let it be. Yeah.
Because this is my favorite.
Till Obi-Wan comes out. I'm going to give that an 11. I might give that an 11.
Maybe.
I'm going to be honest.
This close. But this game is my personal favorite Marvel anything ever.
Personal favorite anything. I thought you were just going to say that.
Well, I mean, that too.
How many times have you played it? Do you have a number on that?
It's somewhere in like mid-20s.
How many times have you 100%ed it?
That same amount. Oh wait, no. But actually, one less, because I had one playthrough where I just did the story to get an achievement.
One.
It was just doing the game. It was doing the game on the hardest difficulty, and I was just like, okay, I can get the achievement from just doing the story. I'm just
this
doing
game
the
can
story.
be tough.
Yeah,
and
this was like, I mean, hard. Like when New Game Plus and the ultimate difficulty came out,
it didn't hold your hand. they will kill you.
Yeah, but this game is my personal favorite. Yeah, I'll just be straight up on anything.
Favorite. Stop.
In terms of including shows, games, like all games, movies, anything. Because like my favorite TV show, Mandalorian. My favorite movie, Spider-Man No Way Home. This game tops both of those easily.
I'd say that this is probably in my top 5 in terms of games, because the only thing that's up there is Complete Saga and like God of War. But like the two totally different.
And maybe an Uncharted 4 when you get to
it. And Uncharted 4 whenever I get it. I'm playing Uncharted 2 right now.
But this game is just, the excitement I had for this game was just unreal, especially because everybody was like so skeptical when it was first announced. And then
he probably drove 120 miles per hour back to his house whenever this game was downloaded on his PlayStation.
Probably. Because that was all I was talking about that entire day of school. And then I got home and it's just like, I adore this story.
All right.
What?
All right, Dad, I'm not going to talk to you at all today. Bye. Close the door. Close the door. And he's like, understandable.
But it's like, I adore this story. I adore all of these characters. And I adore the gameplay. And while I do understand that personally there are a couple of like complaints and nitpicks that can be made about it.
Screwball.
That especially. But because like, especially like just talking main game, she's only one mission. And like something you can get away with like that. Like,
yeah. Like the one gripe that you had with this game was the fact that you couldn't play with the No Way Home suits on PS4.
But yeah, this game will more than likely, unless if the sequel somehow ends up topping this.
I think it will. That's what I maintain the fact because
because Insomniac Games know what they're doing, and this game will forever be my favorite. Anything like favorite project of anything, whether it's like games, shows, or movies, anything, this will forever be my favorite. So 11 out of 10, easily. And I have hopes that the second one could end up topping it because they're bringing in Venom.
And like a Venom symbiote version of each
suit. I'm like, oh my.
And we're gonna play as Miles and Peter.
Yes, I'm so excited. I think that sums up our thoughts. I think Logan would probably agree with us as well. He would probably give this like a 10. At the least, he'd probably give like a 9 or 9.5.
I don't think he'd go that low.
I say at the least. At the most, he would give it a 10 as well. But, yep, that's going to do it. Stay tuned for our Obi-Wan reviews, which we are all super excited for. That's going to do it, and we'll see you later, Whipheads.